those who haven't heard, I became a granddad for the first time 12 days ago. And I have to say that holding Jonah for the first time when he was just 3 hours old was wonderful. The feelings that arose took me right back to holding Caroline for the first time over 30 years previously. And here she was, looking unsurprisingly rather worn out, watching me hold her baby. Yet I also knew that although it awakened all those feelings, these feelings were different. This was my grandchild, not my child. I'm very excited, you may have discovered already, about being a grandparent. And I recognise it is a deep privilege to be one. A few weeks ago, it was also my privilege to present the certificates to the first group of young people who had completed our first Growing Young Leaders course in the diocese. It was inspiring to watch and hear them explain how they had grown and developed through the course. They are superb young people. It's great that under Andy Harris' leadership this will happen again starting this autumn, and do encourage young people to sign up. Both events, becoming a grandparent and seeing these young leaders at the end of their training, lead me to ponder what present reality we have that makes this a good nation in which to belong. And it makes me ask what kind of world we are shaping together into which they will grow and will take on increasing responsibility. And I want to begin with that reflection on a healthy planet. If God continues to sustain the universe and our planet into the next century, these young people and my grandson are likely on current expectations to be alive and see the turn of the century. But just what will the planet be like? Will it have warmed so much that sea levels have risen seriously and Pacific Islands, Bangladesh, and much of East Anglia will be under the sea? Will millions, perhaps billions, have died because of famine and lack of water? Will a major war have been fought over access to water and to fertile land? Or will we truly have faced up to the realities of climate change and found ways of reducing the temperature rise? Will we have discovered ways of refreezing the polar ice caps safely? Will we have all changed our eating habits so that all are adequately fed and the animal kingdom is flourishing? As Christians, our starting point is clear. All is here because of the will of God, the Creator. He is our ultimate sustainer. All creation exists for his glory. We as human beings made in God's image have a specific responsibility to steward and care for the whole of creation well. We are deeply interconnected with all creatures. We are dust too. We are not to be exploiters, but carers and collaborators. The vision held out for us of the future is of a renewed creation, of all nature living in harmony with each other and with God. At the Young Leaders Awards, I asked these young people if they might take the lead for us as a diocese in thinking how we best respond to being better in our environmental care. Young people internationally have shown a clear lead. This is understandable, as they are the ones who will live with the consequences of how we respond to the known need to change. Their vision and passion should help us all. It needs to lead to some of them, at least, becoming the biologists, the physicists, and so on, who come up with some of the new developments that we will all need. We all have to play our part. As individuals, we must examine our care of the part of the planet we occupy. As a diocese, we must look at what we can contribute through our care of houses and offices. We need to find ways of encouraging every parish church and hall to be as environmentally friendly as possible. We must act as partners within our local communities to help them all be greener. Then we also have to explore how we can partner with organisations like Christian Aid to connect with our fellow Christians around the globe in tackling climate change together. The wake-up call was sounded quite some time ago, and we have largely failed to heed it. Now it is more of an alarm shout. Surely God is alerting us afresh as humanity to the responsibilities he has given to us to care for the world that is his gift to us all. The reality of climate change is contributing to poverty around the world. So I want now to reflect briefly on poverty. To start with, on poverty, there's actually some good news. The reality is that globally we have made great strides against poverty over the past 25 years, with a far smaller proportion of the world living in absolute poverty. But there are parts of the world, notably sub-Saharan Africa, where progress is very slow indeed. For ourselves as a nation, we are currently seeing child poverty back on the increase, where social mobility is at best flat rather than improving, where the gap between the wealthiest and the poorest is wider than ever, and where we are in the worst political vacuum any of us, regardless of age, can remember. It feels like, as a nation, we really have lost vision and may well decide to walk into a dark unknown, devoid of any clarity about where we want to travel. This is not what I want for our young people or children. Now, the reality of poverty is varied. It includes financial poverty through a lack of monetary resource because of poorly paid work, an unkind benefit cap, or a problematic new welfare system. It also includes social poverty through isolation and loneliness caused by family fracturing, overstretched social care, or a lack of community places and spaces in which to engage. Then it includes spiritual poverty, caused by an overemphasis on materialism, an unhealthy self-reliance, and sometimes a willingness to believe anything. We are called upon to be poor in spirit and content with what we have, rather than fueled by always wanting more. Yet also we are called to be a people committed to God's justice for the poorest and neediest in our world. This certainly includes supplying needs through food banks, holiday hunger provision, welcoming asylum seekers and refugees, visiting the lonely. But it must also include striving for justice that changes the systems so that people are not caught and held in such poverty in the first place. I'm conscious that the young people I highlighted earlier largely actually come from backgrounds where opportunities come their way. My grandson Jonah starts life in a privileged place due to his family. It is vital that we ensure we work with children and young people from every walk of life, helping those facing poverty in all its forms to be given as many opportunities as anyone else. So when today we are considering our poverty agenda, please think hard about justice, not simply service. Today I also want to urge us all to play our part in avoiding a further growth in the political vacuum to which I referred earlier. We are in unknown political times. It is very uncertain. It therefore makes many nervous or angry or apathetic or resigned. I want to say that as followers of Jesus, we must not give in to apathy or resignation. I have one very simple action to commend. Vote in the European elections on May the 23rd. Encourage all your congregations to vote. Encourage your work colleagues to vote. Encourage your neighbours to vote. Do not vote out of self-interest, but out of love for your neighbour, locally, regionally, globally. Vote out of care for the well-being of the nation, the continent, and the globe. Here I am not saying how anyone should vote. That is for each to decide in their own conscience what they believe to be the best for the nation. I accept that we will reach different conclusions on that. But I am saying, please vote. Our political processes matter. Democracy is a precious and fragile gift. Don't risk undermining it further by not engaging in it. You may think these elections are meaningless. They are not. They will be interpreted and explored. The outcome will influence next steps in our nation. So for the sake of the nation, please exercise the wonderful privilege of being able to vote freely, which is a privilege still the vast numbers of people in the world do not have. Then in all of this, pray for our nation. Pray for our political leaders of all parties and ideas. We need to keep seeking God's face for the well-being of our land and indeed for the continent of Europe. As Paul wrote to Timothy, first of all, then, I urge that supplications, prayers, intercessions, and thanksgivings should be made for everyone, for kings and all who are in high positions, so that we may lead a quiet and peaceable life in all godliness and dignity. This is right and is acceptable in the sight of God our Saviour, who desires everyone to be saved and to come to the knowledge of the truth. I want now to return back to the poverty agenda with particular reference to children and young people in the context of leading on to reflect on Waymark 19. When we set our vision 4 years ago as blessing our communities in Jesus' name for the transformation of us all, we created the plan on a page as our framework through to 2020. It has not been a static plan. It's on about 7th version. We have refined it several times, but its core has remained with the 3 priorities of growth, children and young people, and poverty. It is time to develop a renewed plan for 2020 to 2025. Hence the whole Waymark process, which began with the Clergy Study Day last November, has continued through the Lent studies, has another step today, some more to follow, and will lead to the 2-day conference in October. There are all kinds of other elements that will feed in, including the Learning from the Whole Missional Leadership for Growth programme, Partnership for Missional Church, the early stages of resourcing churches, setting God's people free, and the everyday realities of all parishes, chaplaincies, and schools. Waymark 19 is all about listening to and observing what God has been doing amongst us. We do this so that we can together discern the best ways of blessing our communities into the future. The whole Waymark process is intended to help us discern together just where God is leading us to focus our gifts and energies in the next few years. We cannot do everything. We have limited financial resources. The number of clergy available is also limited. Although the number of new vocations for both stipendiary and self-supporting ordained ministry continues to be encouraging, it still does not give us an available increased number. So together we have to decide where we best use our gifts and energies. This is true in every parish and chaplaincy, as well as together as the diocesan family. Waymark should help us do this so that we have a visionary and wise plan on a page for 2020 to 25. We will not finalise this until well into 2020. This is partly why we've proposed that 2020 is then a year of pilgrimage. The whole purpose is simply to help us all personally and together continue to journey with Jesus as pilgrims. The new pilgrimage routes into Durham Cathedral will be great opportunities to literally walk together. The Passion Play on Good Friday in Bishop Auckland will be a major opportunity to witness to Jesus. The cathedral has many exciting ideas being explored. But the core of the year has to be about locally being pilgrims together, exploring walking with Jesus day by day, and inviting others to join in the journey. And this ties closely with what has been one of the core aspects of our plan on a page that's been there from the outset. However, it's been highlighted more fully over the recent period. This is the centrality of discipleship. We are all disciples, learners, followers of Jesus. We are all pilgrims. We are far from being alone in placing discipleship at the centre. Across the whole Anglican Communion, there has been work done on an international basis exploring what intentional discipleship looks like. At the recent Anglican Consultative Council meeting in Hong Kong, a simple definition of discipleship was agreed for the Anglican Communion. It is living and sharing a Jesus-shaped life. Living and sharing a Jesus-shaped life. I like this a lot. It's clear that discipleship is about how we live. It's also clear that discipleship is something we share with others, both as fellow disciples and in inviting others into the same life of discipleship. It is centered on Jesus. It's a statement which is clear and simple to remember. Yet it contains so much that can be explored that it fills the rest of our lives. I simply want to follow Jesus to the end of my days. I want to live and share with you and others from all walks of life and all parts of the globe a Jesus-shaped life. One of the reasons I look forward to welcoming visitors from around the Anglican Communion in July next year, before the Lambeth Conference, is to hear from bishops around the globe how they and their people are living and sharing Jesus-shaped lives. They will have things to teach us about being pilgrims, about being disciples of Jesus. They will certainly have perspectives to offer us, both of their experience of environmental change and their own insights into poverty. It will be a delight to welcome them to share with us around the diocese for a week. Discipleship is also central to the work on setting God's people free. The core of this is about every single follower of Jesus being released to follow and serve him in every area of life, 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It is not about getting lay people to do more to keep the church institution running. It is about living for Jesus in our homes, with our neighbours, in places of work and study, in sports and social clubs, when we are out shopping, everywhere, all the time, loving and sharing Jesus-shaped lives. So, as we go through all the business before us today, may we consider how each and every part enables all God's people to live as disciples of Jesus. The thing I most want for my grandson is that he grows up knowing he is loved by God and that he walks with Jesus all the days of his life. I know this is what his parents want for him too. Like all our children and young people, he will grow up in a world having to really tackle the environmental challenges and care for the planet well. I hope this next generation will see further reductions in poverty. Above all, I pray and trust that they will be a generation continuing to be those living and sharing a Jesus-shaped life. It is all our responsibility to help the next generations be such by ourselves being pilgrims who live and share Jesus-shaped lives ourselves.